What if someone welcomed you to a place you had never visited before and called you welcome back? 12 college friends traveled to a remote hill station for a weekend they had planned for months. They laughed, they sang, they believed the only thing waiting for them was a beautiful sunrise. But before midnight, something hidden in the forest counted them, and when they counted themselves the next morning, the numbers didn't match. This is that story. Welcome to the Unseen Hour. The trip began on a Friday afternoon. 12 final-year students from Westbridge College hired 2 SUVs and left the city just after lunch. For almost 4 months they had planned this weekend. Arguments over the destination, arguments over food, arguments over music. But everyone agreed on one thing. This would be the last trip before graduation. The destination was Blackpine Hill Station, a quiet mountain surrounded by dense pine forests. The place had become popular because of its breathtaking sunrise and peaceful campsites. Ryan was driving the first SUV. James drove the second. By the time they reached Blackpine, the sun had already disappeared behind the mountains. The air felt colder than anyone expected. Emma stepped out first and smiled. This place is incredible. Nobody disagreed. Within an hour, they had pitched 6 tents. Connor prepared the barbecue. Someone connected a portable speaker. Someone else started collecting firewood. Soon, music echoed through the clearing. For the first time in months, nobody talked about exams. Nobody talked about jobs. For one evening, they were just 12 friends enjoying life. Emma suddenly stood up. Nobody moved. She raised her phone. One group photo before dinner. Everyone laughed and squeezed together. Ryan held up 2 fingers behind James's head. Connor pretended to look serious. Emma pressed the shutter. Perfect. She slipped the phone into her pocket without checking the picture. Dinner followed. Music returned. Stories became louder. The fire burned brighter. Then, Ryan noticed something strange. Not in the forest, in the group. Everyone was laughing. Everyone except him. For some reason, he couldn't stop looking toward the trees. He didn't know why. It felt as though someone was standing there, watching. Ryan shook his head. He walked over to the speaker and lowered the volume. I think someone's out there. James laughed. A deer. Ryan didn't answer. His eyes remained fixed on the darkness. Then, a calm voice drifted from the forest, clear enough for every single person to hear. Welcome back. Nobody spoke. James slowly stood. Who's there? No reply. Only the forest. Ryan grabbed the strongest flashlight they had and pointed it between the trees. Nothing. No movement. No animals. No people. Connor forced a smile. Someone's trying to scare us. Before anyone could respond, the voice returned. Exactly the same calm tone. Exactly the same direction. You're late, Emma whispered. What do you mean? Back. Nobody wanted to admit they were frightened. James walked 20 meters toward the trees with a flashlight. Ryan followed him. The beams swept across the forest, tree after tree, bush after bush. Nothing. The voice had sounded close enough to touch, yet there was nobody there. James turned back. Probably someone camping nearby. Connor nodded, trying to scare tourists. It sounded reasonable. Almost. Ryan looked at the ground. If someone was here, where are the footprints? The soil around the clearing was damp from afternoon rain. Their own shoe prints were everywhere. But beyond them, nothing. No fresh footprints. No bicycle tracks. No tire marks. Nothing had approached the campsite. Emma tried to change the mood. Forget it. It's our last trip together. I'm not letting one stupid prank ruin it. Everyone agreed. The music started again. The fire burned brighter. Within 20 minutes, they were laughing again, but nobody sat with their back facing the forest anymore. Around midnight, the fire began to die. One by one, everyone went inside their tents. Ryan couldn't sleep. The voice kept replaying in his mind. Welcome back. Not welcome. Welcome back. He had never visited Blackpine before. Neither had any of them. So why had it sounded so certain? Ryan unzipped the tent and stepped outside. The campsite was quiet. A cold wind moved through the pine trees. He looked toward the forest again. Then, he noticed something. Someone was standing beside the last tree, perfectly still. Too far to recognize, too dark to identify. Just a human shape. Ryan grabbed his flashlight. The beam landed exactly where the figure stood. Nothing. The tree, the grass, empty air. He lowered the light. The figure was back, standing in the same place, watching him. Ryan didn't call anyone. He didn't know why. Something inside him said, "Don't let it know you've seen it." He slowly stepped backwards, entered the tent, zipped it shut. He didn't sleep. Morning arrived. Sunlight filled the clearing. Everything looked normal again. Connor started making coffee. James packed the cooking equipment. Emma finally remembered the group photograph. Let's see how it turned out. She opened the picture, smiled. Then, the smile disappeared. She zoomed in. Once, twice. Then looked up at everyone. "Ryan, you took this picture too?" Ryan frowned. "No, you did. You were standing next to James." Emma slowly handed him the phone. There were 12 students around the fire, exactly as there should have been. Except, there was another person, standing behind them. A man, tall, wearing a dark coat. His face was pale. His eyes were fixed on the camera. Nobody had seen him. Nobody remembered him. Nobody had noticed him standing only a few steps behind them. Connor grabbed the phone. James looked, one by one. Every student stared at the photograph. Nobody recognized the man. Then Sophie quietly asked, "If he was standing there, who welcomed us from the forest?" No one answered, because every one of them had just realized the same thing. The voice and the man couldn't have been in the same place. Nobody spoke for almost a minute. James finally broke the silence. "This has to be edited." Emma immediately shook her head. "I took it 30 seconds ago." Connor looked closer. The strange man wasn't blurred. He wasn't transparent. He wasn't hiding. He looked as real as everyone else. Ryan zoomed in. The man's eyes weren't looking at the camera. They were looking at Ryan. A chill ran through him. "Delete it." Emma looked surprised. "What?" "Delete the picture." Nobody argued. She pressed delete. The photograph disappeared. Everyone breathed a little easier. Then Emma's phone vibrated. A notification appeared. Photo restored successfully. She hadn't restored anything. The photograph had returned by itself, exactly the same. Except now, the man was smiling. Nobody wanted breakfast anymore. James looked around. "We're leaving." Within 20 minutes, the tents were packed. The fire was completely out. Nobody even looked toward the forest. They just wanted to leave Blackpine behind. As Ryan picked up the last backpack, Connor suddenly frowned. "Wait." Everyone stopped. Connor slowly counted. 1, 2, 3, until 12. He nodded. "Okay." Ryan looked confused. "You think someone's missing?" Connor forced a smile. "I just wanted to make sure." They walked toward the parking area. It was only a 2-minute walk from the campsite. Ryan stopped. The cars. Both SUVs were locked, exactly as they had left them, except every door was covered with handprints, dirty handprints. Dozens of them, small, large, old, fresh, as though many people had surrounded the vehicles during the night. Emma whispered, "We would have heard them." James unlocked the first SUV. Nobody wanted to know who had touched it. They just wanted to leave. Ryan opened the driver's door. Something white rested on his seat. A folded piece of paper. He stared at it. Nobody moved. Finally, he picked it up, opened it. There was only one sentence. "I counted correctly." Ryan looked at Connor. Connor looked back. Neither of them understood. James asked quietly, "What does it mean?" Ryan didn't answer. Instead, he looked at the group again. Counted. 12. Exactly 12. Then, without warning, Sophie asked a question that made every heartbeat stop. She looked at everyone and said, "Who was driving the second SUV yesterday?" James laughed. "I was." Sophie frowned. "No. I remember sitting behind Ryan." Connor looked confused. "I was behind Ryan." Emma slowly turned toward James. "So was I." For the next few seconds, every one of them described a different seating arrangement. None of the memories matched. Not one. Ryan felt his hands becoming cold. Someone hadn't changed the photograph. Someone had changed their memories. Nobody spoke during the drive home. Not because they had nothing to say, because every conversation ended the same way, with someone saying, "No, that's not how I remember it." Ryan remembered stopping for dinner. Emma insisted they never stopped. Connor remembered heavy rain. James was certain the road had been completely dry. It wasn't just one memory. Every shared memory from the trip had started breaking apart. They reached the city just before sunset. Everyone agreed on one thing. Nobody would tell anyone about Blackpine. No police, no social media, no ghost stories. They wanted their lives back. For 3 days, everything seemed normal. Then Ryan received a phone call. It was James. His voice sounded different. "We need to meet." An hour later, all 12 friends were sitting inside Ryan's apartment. James placed a laptop on the table. "I've been checking our trip." He opened the booking confirmation. 12 names. Nothing unusual. Then he opened the tollgate record. Only one SUV had entered Blackpine. Ryan frowned. "That's impossible." "We had two." James nodded. "I know." He opened the petrol receipt. One vehicle. He opened the parking payment. One vehicle. Every official record showed exactly the same thing. Only one SUV had traveled to Blackpine, but 12 students couldn't fit inside one SUV. Connor whispered, "That's impossible." James slowly looked around the room. "That's exactly what I'm trying to tell you." Emma suddenly remembered something. The CCTV. Everyone looked at her. The fuel station. If we stop there, the cameras should show us. Within an hour, they reached the station. The manager allowed them to watch the recording. Ryan's heart was pounding. The video started. One SUV entered. It stopped beside pump 3. The doors opened, one by one. 12 students stepped out. Ryan counted. 12. Nobody else. No second vehicle. No dark-coated man. Nothing unusual. Then, the manager paused the video. What is he doing? Everyone looked closer. Ryan was standing beside the driver's door, looking directly at the CCTV camera, smiling. Then, Ryan slowly turned his head. towards someone standing outside the camera frame and nodded as though he recognized them. The manager looked confused. Was someone talking to him? Ryan's face turned pale. I don't remember this. The manager rewound the footage, played it again. This time, Ryan never turned his head. He simply got out of the SUV and walked away. The strange moment had disappeared. The CCTV had changed. Connor pushed his chair back. We all saw it. James nodded. It was there. Emma whispered, "It's changing again." Ryan felt something he had never experienced before. Not fear, not panic, something worse. He could no longer trust his own memories or the evidence proving they had happened. Then his phone vibrated. Unknown number. Only 2 words. Welcome home. Ryan slowly looked toward the apartment window. Across the street stood a man in a dark coat, watching. He smiled, then disappeared into the crowd without taking a single step. Ryan didn't tell anyone about the message. He deleted it. 5 seconds later, it appeared again, exactly the same. Welcome home. This time, he switched off his phone. Life slowly returned to normal. Classes resumed. Assignments piled up. Friends laughed again. From the outside, everything looked exactly as it had before Blackpine. But something had changed. Every morning, one of them remembered something differently. Not about the hill, about their own lives. Connor suddenly remembered having a younger brother. His parents insisted he had always been an only child. Emma was convinced her bedroom walls had always been blue. Her mother showed her old photographs. They had always been white. James remembered learning to ride a bicycle when he was 10. His father laughed. "You were 6. Every memory felt almost right. Almost. Ryan finally broke the silence. "We're going back." 11 faces turned toward him. Emma stood up immediately. "Absolutely not," Ryan nodded. "I know. But whatever followed us started there. And if we don't understand it, it will never stop." Nobody wanted to return, but nobody had another answer. 2 days later, the 12 friends stood once again at the entrance to Blackpine Hill. This time, there was no excitement, no music, no photographs, only questions. As they walked toward the old campsite, Ryan noticed something they had all missed before. A weathered wooden board stood beside the trail. The words were almost impossible to read. The paint had nearly disappeared. James brushed away the dirt. Everyone leaned closer. The board read, "Welcome back, every visitor returns. Some just take longer." Nobody remembered seeing the board during their first visit. It stood beside the only path into the forest. There was no way they could have missed it. Connor whispered, "This was always here." Emma slowly shook her head. No, it wasn't. They reached the clearing. Nothing had changed. The fire pit remained exactly where they had left it. The 6 tent spaces were still visible. Ryan looked around. "It feels..." He stopped. James looked at him. "What?" Ryan frowned. "It feels smaller." Connor suddenly counted the tent spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. He stopped. There were 6 tents. Everyone looked. There were only 5 flat camping spaces, not 6. 5. Emma immediately opened the old group booking. 6 tents, 12 people. She looked up again. 5 spaces. The ground itself had changed. Then Sophie quietly said something that froze everyone. "If the hill can change our memories..." She looked around the clearing. "What if it can change its own?" Nobody answered, because for the first time, they understood. Blackpine wasn't haunted. Blackpine was remembering, And it wasn't remembering them. It was remembering someone else. Nobody moved. Ryan kept staring at the old wooden sign. One sentence refused to leave his mind. Every visitor returns. Not every visitor leaves. Returns. Ryan suddenly looked at James. How did we find this place? James frowned. We searched online. What website? James opened his phone. He searched. Nothing. No Blackpine Hill station. No campsite. No travel blogs. No photographs. Nothing. Connor tried. Emma tried. Nobody found a single result. The place they had visited didn't exist. Ryan slowly opened the gallery on his phone. Every photograph from Blackpine was gone. Not deleted. Simply never there. Only one image remained. The group photograph. He opened it. 12 friends stood around the campfire. No strange man. No writing on the trees. Nothing unusual. James laughed nervously. See? It was all in our heads. Ryan didn't answer. He zoomed into the fire. Then he noticed it. 12 shadows around the flames, but 13 reflections. One reflection didn't belong to anyone. It stood behind them, looking directly at the fire. Ryan showed everyone. Nobody spoke, because they all saw it. Then a voice came from behind them. Calm, patient. Exactly the same voice. Now, nobody turned around. Not one of them. They already knew. Whatever was speaking wasn't human. The voice continued. Count yourselves, Ryan whispered. Don't. Connor couldn't help himself. He counted. 1, 2, 3. His voice became weaker. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. He stopped. Ryan looked at him. What? Connor's face had turned white. I only counted 11. Emma immediately counted. 11. James counted. 11. Everyone counted. Every count ended the same way. 11. Ryan slowly looked around. Only then did they realize what had happened. Nobody knew who was missing. There should have been 12. Every one of them knew that. But when they tried to remember the 12th friend, there was only emptiness. A missing face, a missing name, a missing voice. It was as though someone had been carefully erased from every memory. Ryan felt tears filling his eyes. We forgot, Emma whispered. We left someone here. The voice spoke one last time, closer than ever, almost beside Ryan's ear. No. A pause. Then, you arrived with 11. Ryan closed his eyes. Every memory of the trip, every photograph, every conversation, every count suddenly made sense. The hill had never counted wrong. They had. The thing in the forest had never been hunting them. It had only been correcting them. The group had spent the entire story trying to discover who the 13th person was. The truth was far worse. There had never been a 13th person. There had only ever been 11. Everything else had been a memory that didn't belong to them. 3 days later, Mountain Rescue received an anonymous phone call. The caller asked a simple question. How many students disappeared at Blackpine 10 years ago? The officer searched the old records, then answered, 11. The caller quietly hung up. The number was never traced. Some people believe forests remember everyone who enters them. Others believe they keep only the ones who never leave. But if you ever visit a lonely hill and a voice welcomes you back, don't ask who is waiting. Ask yourself, how many people came with you? That was The Unseen Hour. A story about the places that remember us, the memories we trust without question, and the terrifying possibility that sometimes we are the ones who remember them incorrectly. The 12 friends spent their entire journey searching for someone who never existed, because the hill was never trying to frighten them. It was only trying to correct them. Subscribe to The Unseen Hour. A brand new mystery is coming very soon. And remember, if you ever hear a voice whisper, welcome back. Don't ask who is waiting for you. Ask yourself why it already knows your name. Good night.